Basketball.
It's time to strap in and get ready. The Insight NBA team is in the arena, bringing you the ultimate play-by-play on who's hot and who's not to help you win your leagues and dominate your mates. You're now hooping with your hosts, Matty G, Skitty, and Melly for the Insight NBA show.
G'day everyone and welcome to the second last weekly preview. It is week 23, matchup 24. Who cares? It starts on Monday, the 31st of March, and is the second last season of NBA regular season action, which means this is your penultimate week, could be your final week. And so let's get it sorted. Let's get you locked in, hopefully for a win to win your season or put yourself in the final picture for the final week, which it is dark days if you were still playing fantasy this late in the season. But let's take a look at it and break it down. Week 23 schedule. And I mean dark because the injuries and the rest and the ramp up. And we're going to do a show at the end of the season about when is the best time to finish your playoffs. Because look at this schedule right here for week 23. 8 games. Monday, Tuesday is a nice little easier 7. It works up to a Wednesday 9, back down to a low of 6. Sounds like the weather. It's a tropical low of 6 on Thursday, but we do ramp up to a big burger size 2 red games on Friday and Sunday with a very low volume day Saturday of 5 games. So Friday is 10. Sunday is 11, and wedged in between there is our little green peg, an easy stream day from 5. So we're going to talk about later on in the episode where we can get down into the nitty-gritty, and that starts with the 4-team gamers. Now, there's no 5-team gamers, there's no 2-team gamers, so that advantage or disadvantage is taken away this week. A majority of the NBA do play 4 games. The Hawks, the Celtics, the Hornets, Bulls, Mavs, Nuggets, Warriors, the Rockets, the Pacers, the Clippers, and the Lakers. Both LA teams are in there, as well as Memphis, Miami, Milwaukee, the Knicks, the Thunder, the Trailblazers, the Kings, the Spurs, Raptors, Utah Jazz, and Washington Wizards. Now, they've all got 4 games this week. We're going to touch on some of those teams a little bit later on because there is a bunch. There are. That's good grammar. There are a bunch of teams. They're in that playoff and play in swing section. And usually there's a time of the year, which is now, like I said, the dark days of fantasy, where players are getting rest days. And teams are starting to look to, just bench players and they're okay. We're talking like top seed teams here. We're talking like the OKC and the Cavs. We know they've taken a little bit light on Donovan Mitchell. They've got the East pretty much sewn up, even though they've given up the seed into the West for home court, which I don't know if it was wise up against the Thunder. But we start to see these shenanigans. But there's this pack that either want to make it and jostle for a position from let's say 2 to 6, or just avoid the play-in. And so we can get a little bit of fantasy juice from them possibly later on. The 3-teamers then obviously leaves us with only these guys: Brooklyn, Cleveland, Detroit, the Timberwolves, the Pels, the Orlando Magic, the Phoenix Suns, and the Philadelphia 76ers. Back-to-backs. Let's break down the back-to-backs for this week because as you can see by the schedule here, it's somewhat okay up until Thursday. Wednesday is only the kind of little bit of a murky day where you may or you may not, depending if you've stacked a couple of players on the same team. Wednesday with 9 is probably the hardest day to work the back-to-back schedule here. So just check it out where you are early on in your week, just to set yourself up and just go into that early midweek session with Monday and Tuesday back-to-backs with the Chicago Bulls, the Memphis Grizzlies, and the Orlando Magic. So that starts our week off really well, especially with the 8 and 7 game schedules. You'll be able to get a little bit of juice here and definitely get an extra play out of your roster spots there. We then go into Tuesday, Wednesday with the Hawks, the Nuggets, the Knicks, and the San Antonio Spurs. We quickly move that into the Wednesday and Thursday with the Heat and the Wizards. The Thursday, Friday, the Warriors, Lakers, Trailblazers, and Raptors. And again, this Friday is where it starts to get murky. You've got the good day on the Thursday with 6. The 10 games on Friday does make it difficult. However, the advice here is, what are you chasing? Or what are you trying to consolidate? If the worst player that you have isn't an asset in one of those two areas, you drop them. You add a player from the back-to-back, especially if that player who's the worst, maybe you're probably even thinking about benching in the first place anyway. You're like, oh, got a full roster spot. I'll just roll them on out there. I'm not sure. I've got one game there. It's no use doing a drop. And they're not playing the day before. And it's probably a high chance that they're not, especially with that 6 games on the Thursday. Move in someone who's going to benefit you more actively and drop them off on the after their game Wednesday. Use them for the Thursday and Friday, and then see where you can go on the weekend and get rid of that person on Friday if you need to. If you've saved up your waiver wire ads, hit the low volume game Saturday, and then ride the Lightning on the last day of the Sunday, which is going to be a lot of people playing, going absolutely hammer and tongs on that last day to get it, especially with that 11 games. So you can bring in that juice there on the Thursday and Friday with, again, the Warriors, the Lakers, Trailblazers, and Raptors. Setting yourself up there on the second end of that on the Friday or the Saturday. Again, if you can take advantage of that high volume day by any way, shape, or form, if you've got an empty roster spot, God forbid. The Mavs, Pistons, and Clips all play 2 games Friday and Saturday. The Saturday, Sunday, back-to-back are the Hawks, Bucks, and the New York Knicks. 2 teams of which there are absolutely prime position for playoff and play-in seeding. If you are finishing off your week strong, if you've got your win locked up and you can move into the next week, week 24, you can do it with the Sacramento Kings. They do have a back-to-back to finish the week on the Sunday and roll into your beginning of the week. Now, there are some curious schedule notes for this week. For me, my mind, the best schedule here is for the Indiana Pacers. The Indiana Pacers this week, they play the Sacramento Kings. They've been odd at best, but the good news is for them, they also play the Hornets and the Jazz. They do play the Nuggets, who have been decent as of late, but they will probably rest players potentially down the stretch. Let's pay attention to that. But again, I don't think they can afford to, but they do get 3 easier games with the Kings, the Hornets, and the Jazz this week. The Blazers are also there, but they're the Blazers because they play the Raptors and the Spurs. And the toughest schedule this week is the Wizards. I'm not a big fan of the Wizards schedule this week. I reckon they've got it absolutely tough. So if we're looking to stream in who are their opponents, like, oh, maybe they start the week okay. Sure. Well, they've got Miami, the Sacramento Kings, the Orlando Magic, who are jostling, and the current NBA champions, the Boston Celtics. So I don't think their pathway is just as clean. But as I did said, there are some nice little nuances we can wrap our head around. Memphis plays the lowest volume game days. This is a big one. Matty, what do you mean I can take advantage of it? These guys play on all the lowest game days. This is the good news for the Memphis Grizzlies. They play very, very early on in the week here, which is excellent news for us. So we can get the Memphis Grizzlies on that back-to-back set to begin the week. They play Monday, Tuesday. Then again, they play on Thursday and they play on Saturday. They are the only team to take advantage of that schedule. So if you add a Memphis Grizzlies player, you will be able to play them every single game this week. A nice little one here as well, the Orlando Magic. Orlando wraps their 3 games on Thursday. So you can get advantage of them early in the week. They've got the back-to-back set, Monday, Tuesday. They rest the Wednesday. And you get a 3rd game on Thursday. You can drop that guy off. I know Brano, shout out to him, in our Insight. We're at the semi-final stage in our Insight Fantasy Comp. And he picked up Anthony Black. Not a bad shout. Cole Anthony, in and out of the lineup for the last couple of weeks. Black's got some minutes. There's a pathway there. So he's picked him up. He can drop him off on Thursday and then look to re-add on the back end of the week. And he made that add at the end of last week, setting himself up for the back-to-back Monday, Tuesday. Anthony Black's week finishes on Thursday, and he can pivot off that later in the week. So it's a really good shout to take advantage of that for an ad and also use that for the beginning part of the week, 3 games, and get another ad at the back of the week. But as I said, the playoff hunt teams, these are important ones to pay attention to. The Mavericks, the Nuggets, the Pistons, the Warriors, the Clippers, Lakers, Grizzlies, Heat, the Bucks, Knicks, and Orlando are all jostling for playoff and play-in positioning right now. That means this. We always say that, oh, yeah, but, they rest players. Yeah, they do. They just don't rest players in the NBA these last 2 weeks. We saw it recently with Jokic. He was out. He probably took a little bit of rest in here. We've seen it with him in the past as well. His injury takes a little bit longer to get better and sustain. But these last 2 weeks where there's like 8 games, they don't want to lose anything and they want to secure a position that they want in the playoff. They want top 6 there, or they don't want to slip into the play-in tournament. They don't want to have that extra workload. Or they're just like, we have a really good matchup with these guys. We'll lose some games along the way just so we can stay in that 3-4 spot, because I feel much better if I'm playing in one of these spots here than going up and maybe playing a team we haven't had much success with in the past. It's all like that coaching, that big meta, like, maybe just win games. Maybe just play winning basketball and that counts. But it's not about that sometimes. And so this is where these teams are all jostling for playoff and play-in contention. That's the Mavs, the Nuggets, the Pistons, the Warriors, the Clippers, the Lakers, Memphis Grizzlies, Miami Heat, Milwaukee Bucks, Knicks, and Orlando Magic. So what we can see here is that rotations as well may tighten up. Some of the fringy targets, let's just pay attention to those and where they are for minutes, especially early on, because you do see as well coaches starting to tighten up their rotations, getting playoff ready now. Because we all know playoff deep, 8 or 9 is where it goes to. We don't longer see 10 or 11 guys just rolling on out there. Mostly the top 8 guys. So maybe if we're looking and desperately reaching for ads, we can't reach as deep as well, and unless we're in a really, really deep league. And in that case, there's going to be guys out there. But again, it gets really murky this time of year. So let's use that with a bit of a grain of salt, and let's dive into a bit of an injury report with that one as well, because we are talking injuries. Yeah, look, everything's smooth sailing over in Atlanta. We're in Boston. We've had Al Horford and Peyton Pritchard. They didn't play on Saturday, but they are looking to make their return on Monday's game. We've had a sprained toe and some hip tightness there. The Brooklyn Nets, they've been all over the shop lately. Cam Johnson, Noah Clowney, they left on Saturday with back and ankle injuries. Thank goodness they only have 3 games this week, the Brooklyn Nets, instead of us pitching a 5-game week on them, only for last-minute outs. Big news, though, is that obviously for Charlotte, if you've got him in IR, Mark Williams, first game of the back-to-back missed. Second game, it's Monday. Make sure you move him out because he missed Sunday's games with the Pels with his foot thing, but generally they're just rest and injury maintenance, and he will play hopefully on the Monday. The scary thing is with Mark Williams, with LaMelo Ball being shut down, maybe we only get 1 more week of Mark before they do the same thing. Who knows? Or maybe they're just trying to roll him out there and carry some good favor for another offseason trade for Mark Williams, and they don't want to see him injured before he goes down after failing that medical with the Los Angeles Lakers. Green and Curry, they were also out for their games on Saturday, and as we know, that LaMelo Ball is out for the week. Now, news over in Chicago, Josh Giddey is questionable moving into Monday's matchup against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Gids has been on a tear lately. It would be good to see him continue that, but you just know that it is going to be absolute tough pickings for him versus OKC. And I do think that he is in doubt of possibly missing that game there on Monday, the first of the back-to-back set for the Chicago Bulls. Let's pay attention to that. In advance, Dale and Terry will probably get a nice little bump there. Gafford and Lively, they're possible to return sometime later this week for the Dallas Mavericks. They are questionable for Monday, but they're probably more likely to get a run during the course of the week. We pay attention to updates there. In Denver, Jamal Murray missed the last game with a hamstring injury. Let's pay attention to him. As we said, they're looking to make sure that they do get their position and not slip in the Western Conference this week. Cade Cunningham was again doubtful this week with the melee in Detroit, but 7 people got ejected. Isaiah Stewart, a fight that goes into the sand. 7 players. The wait for the news and the updates for the Pistons and Timberwolves players for any possible suspensions this week. That will impact rotations greatly, I believe. That was an absolutely huge one. Golden State, Gary Payne Jr. has torn his ligament in his thumb. He is out indefinitely, whereas in Houston, Tara Eason didn't play on the first of the back-to-back set. Make sure you reactivate him for Monday there. And Reed Shepherd is questionable as he's coming back from his broken thumb. In Indiana, Benedict Mathurin, he was out due to his calf soreness, and he'll be back into the lineup this week in the playoffs for the Indiana Pacers on their very positive week. Now, Kawhi Leonard didn't play on the first half of the back-to-back on Sunday. He will play on Monday. And questionable for that game now is Norman Powell due to injury maintenance. Let's see if they continue to roll him out. But they are, as I said, one of the teams jostling. So they probably are inclined to play Powell moving into this week. Things are pretty smooth sailing for the Lakers and the Memphis Grizzlies, keeping an eye on Ja Morant and his injury news during the course of this week here. In Miami, Andrew Wiggins missed out on Saturday with a hamstring injury. We're looking for an update for his return to play this week after just returning prior the week before. Back issue for Duncan Robinson. That's kept him out like the last 3 or 4 games now. He looks to make a return this week, and there's a possible waiver target later in the week with the Heat's schedule as well. In Milwaukee, Ryan Rollins has been a nice pickup because Damian Lillard has deep vein thrombosis in his calf, and he's going to be out indefinitely with this issue. Ryan Rollins, a nice little pickup here, getting some minutes so we can keep our eyes on him and what the Bucks are doing during the course of this week. In Minnesota, as we said, it was good to see a big return recently from Rudy Gobert, a massive game on Sunday. Terrence Shannon Jr. was questionable for that one, got some runs with the groin soreness, but we are looking for the suspension updates going to be handed down by the NBA for that little melee today against the Pistons. In New Orleans, CJ McCollum and Zion Williamson, they missed Sunday. Don't touch Jose Alvarado if you were ever looking for field goal percentage. He was absolutely woeful. Kelly Olynyk and Jordan Harkins, they were questionable, but Olynyk got the good run there and a starting job. In New York, it has been bad news from them for the most part with their guards, including their relief from Cam Payne and Miles McBride. Delon Wright has been starting in their place and doing a reasonable enough job. The news was from Jalen Brunson, though. He wants to get reps in. He was interviewed before the game on Sunday, and he wants to get reps in before the playoffs. And that time could be sooner rather than later with the Knicks jostling in the East. We could definitely see him back in our final week of the regular season to ramp up. But don't be surprised if you see a couple of runs come out of him at the back end of this week. The Knicks don't have a terribly poor schedule this week. They do finish off with a back-to-back on Saturday and Sunday, like we said, versus Atlanta and Phoenix. It is possible there. I don't think we see a chance for them. Their first game is Tuesday against Philadelphia. There is a game Wednesday against Cleveland. That would be a really watermark moment for them, like one of those watershed moments. So let's just see if Brunson does come back a little bit earlier and get some game action on this week. That would be an absolute cracker to see him play against the Cavaliers over in a big Eastern Conference showdown. In Oklahoma City, Chet Holmgren didn't play Saturday due to injury management. Jalen Williams missed that one. It was going to be his replacement. People added him and then didn't get a run out of him. That's the bigger Jalen Williams, the Jaylin injury one, whereas them as well. Whereas Aaron Wiggins has missed the last 3 games with Achilles tendinopathy. In Orlando, out with a toe strain is Cole Anthony. As we said, they get their games over by Thursday this week. He is expected to make his return earlier this week, though, which could ding the value of Anthony Black. In Philadelphia, in a week's time, Andre Drummond is out. Bonner will still get the Bonner, mate, will still continue to get the run there at center, with Yabusele also going down with his injury as well. In Phoenix, Bradley Beal is out consistently with his hamstring strain, and this might be the way of the future. More updates to come. In Portland, Scoot Henderson is under concussion protocols, and he didn't play Sunday, but he should be returning by the end of this week, whereas Jeremy Grant was again doubtful and questionable for that one with a sore arm. With the sore arm, initially was Anthony Simons on our injury reports there. In Sacramento, Devin Carter was out for this one. Jake LaRavia's thumb is going to be reevaluated later this week. We're in San Antonio. Things have been pretty smooth sailing over there. In Toronto, Jakob Poeltl and Emmanuel Quickley didn't play Sunday against the Sixers, but they will be in and out of lineups during the course of this week, with them playing it very cautiously and coy in their rebuild phase and their tankathon in Toronto for the Raptors. In Utah, it is an absolute shambles. Clarkson didn't play. He will not play again this season. Kessler missed the last game for illness. Markkanen remains on the sidelines with back issues, and the NBA penalizing the Utah Jazz for not filing their paperwork on him correctly. John Collins could return later this week, but it is highly unlikely. Whereas Washington, Chris Middleton missed Saturday's game with his knee soreness, and Keyshawn George has missed the last 3 games for the Wizards. He'll be returning this week. By the end of it, that does it. Go get your W's, get through to your finals. Make sure you like and subscribe to all things. We have the must-add players for the week show coming up this week. Oh, you know what? I just should do it now. Here's a bit of a sample plate of what's to come in our next show this week.
Targets acquired.
How could I not give you the waiver targets, my absolute streamers, before I get out of here? Some of the guys for this week that I've got my eyes on. Matas Buzelis, who has been killing it over in Chicago, especially with the Monday-Tuesday back-to-back set to start the week there. I did like Kevin Huerter, but he is out on Monday, which dings that value. So your one ad that you would have made is only going to get you 1 game instead of the 2. But if Buzelis is out there, go and grab him. Anthony Black, KCP, and Badadze for Orlando to start the week off. With their schedule favorable this week, I do like in Memphis, Scottie Pippen Jr., Santi Aldama, and Luke Kennard as a source of 3s. The back end of this week, Philadelphia. The back end of this week does open up a little bit. We've got Jared Butler, Bonner, Edwards, and Lonnie Walker, the 4th right there, well as Miami, who opens up Highsmith and Davian Mitchell. With our Milwaukee Bucks players in my sights are Gary Trent Jr. and Ryan Rollins, the young Buck, getting a nice bit of run, doing some work for the Milwaukee Bucks. Guys, make sure you like and subscribe to all things Insight. We are hot and deep in it with NRL, AFL. Even the NFL shows are still cracking on through. Make sure you check out the web store and get the latest fantasy merch as well. You can jump down. The links are in the bio, and our very day one sponsor, Standard Squeeze, promo code IFS 2025 for 15% off your order. Those stack. Go get your win. Take care. Be well. We'll see you soon.